Now here's what the Greeks had said about this. You need wisdom, courage, and temperance. You need these three. And if you have those three virtues, right, then you get the fourth, which is justice. And justice is right in between. Justice, which is also, we talk about being right relationships. Justice is where you have the proper relationships with your neighbors, with other people. Okay? That comes about when you have these other good character traits. Now, I find this really useful, a really interesting way to think about our lives, that it's not just a matter of doing the right thing in this or that situation. It's trying to always act out of wisdom, have an understanding of what's really going on, what's really relevant or important here. Courage. I don't act out of fear or anger, but I have a kind of a proper emotional response. That is, when somebody does something really bad, I'm properly indignant, right? And I might get angry, but I also don't let anger supplant my judgment. The proper time and place for anger. And then there's a proper amount for it too. And then physical desire, so that I take pleasure in doing things. I enjoy a good meal, right? With friends, cup of coffee. I enjoy beer. I don't enjoy getting drunk, but I enjoy beer, right? Now there's a difference here. This is something I think we do a terrible job talking to our kids about, right? We'll talk a lot about, what should the age limit be for alcohol. One of the biggest problems we have with our students right now is on the 21st birthday, is regarded as almost obligatory to go out and get completely smashed. That's a sick culture that thinks you're supposed to be abstinent until 21 and then get completely drunk out of your mind. Right? We need to talk, we need to have a vocabulary so we even talk about this stuff with our kids. Okay? So this is how we, right, try to live our lives. Now, the great contribution of Christian culture to this is the Greeks, that was the virtues. And what you get, and you get it first in Paul, and then you get a later development of this in a lot of Christian writings, starting with St. Augustine, and then later in with Aquinas, and then in the Reformation with Calvin and Knox and Luther. You get the theological virtues. And I have a handout there that shows these cardinal virtues on one side, the theological virtues. Theological virtues are faith, hope, and love. And what they recognize, and Augustine in particular, is that the other virtues are really important, and they correspond to the kind of proper functioning of the person. But they don't do enough to really establish our character trait in relationships to others. And it's love that does that primarily. And the reason love is the greatest of the three, of faith, hope, and love, is you can't have love without faith and hope. Right? You have to have faith, you have to have trust. Right? And whether this is love of God or love of neighbor, right? You have to have trust in order to establish a relationship on an ongoing basis, to be a relationship of love. And you also have to have hope, because despair is the opposite of hope. Despair destroys our willingness to continue to engage with others. Despair and cynicism, right? That's giving up. So these three go together, faith, hope, and love. Right? And this is really a Christian contribution to the world, is the emphasis on those virtues primarily, in addition to the cardinal ones. Now, I find this very valuable, and I find it valuable just to look at what are the occasions I can find for talking about it, because when I talk about these, then people hold me accountable to them. Right? And I primarily have to be held accountable for them so that I model them for my children. Because it's not enough to just talk about the virtues to my children. What I mainly have to do is show how they're enacted. When I get in a situation that could make me really angry, how do I handle it? Right? That's what they're watching. Okay. Now here's the other thing that we have certain virtues. Everybody has certain character traits, certain virtues that we acquire. And we acquire them from our families, usually. And then we have vices that we've acquired. You know, character traits that haven't been fully developed, or bad character traits developed. And how do we correct them? What do we do? It's primarily through association with people who have the virtues. We put ourselves in the company of the people that have the virtues that we would like to work on. Because it's in that daily interaction, it's in seeing it, okay, that we change our behavior. Because there's no way of just saying, okay, I'm going to be more courageous, more generous, more wise tomorrow. It doesn't work that way. It works in very small increments, right, through association with people that we respect and admire. And that's the only way it works, and then it can work at any age. So, I think I've come to 1 o'clock. Is that right? Is timekeeper here? So, Keith, thank you very much for your time.